We moved on a Saturday in June. The air in the suburbs smelled different, like freshly cut grass and chlorine from a distant pool, a world away from the exhaust fumes and hot asphalt of the city we'd left behind. This move was for Mia, our 6-year-old. It was for us. We were chasing a cliche, a quiet street, a backyard, a sense of community, a place to feel safe. My wife, Leah, was practically vibrating with excitement. This is it, Alex. A real neighborhood. Look, that guy is actually waving at us, she'd said, pointing at a man jogging past our moving truck. I smiled. The cynical graphic designer who'd seen too much of the city's transactional friendliness, remained cautious. But for Leah's sake, and for Mia, who was already chasing butterflies in our new, patchy backyard, I was determined to try. We hadn't even gotten the last box inside when they appeared. It was like they were summoned by the sheer force of Leah's hopeful energy. They walked across their immaculate, putting green perfect lawn and onto our driveway. They didn't just walk, they glided. "Welcome to the neighborhood," the man said. His smile was dazzling, a perfect set of white teeth. He was tall, dressed in crisp khaki shorts and a polo shirt that looked like it had been ironed moments before. This had to be Mark. The woman beside him and was holding what looked like a movie prop perfect apple pie, steam gently rising from the lattice crust. "We are just so thrilled to have you here," she said, her voice warm and melodic. They were, in a word, flawless. In their 40s, radiating health, happiness, and an unnerving amount of polish. "We're having a little get-together tomorrow night. Just a casual barbecue," Mark said. "You have to come. It'll be a great chance to meet everyone." It wasn't a question, it was a foregone conclusion. We accepted, of course. Leah was beaming. The perfect neighbors with the perfect pie and an instant social invitation. Our suburban dream was coming true on day one. The next few weeks were a blur of idyllic bliss. The barbecue was the first of many get-togethers. Mark, it turned out, was a master of the grill, and Aunt's potato salad was legendary. Mark helped me figure out our sprinkler system and lent me a professional-grade edger for the lawn I didn't even know existed. And Leah became inseparable, swapping recipes, gardening tips, and stories about motherhood. Mia found a best friend in their quiet, polite son, and our backyards became a shared playground. I hadn't seen Leah this happy in years. She was glowing, fully embracing the community she had always craved. And I was happy too. It was impossible not to be. But a small analytical part of my brain, the part that looks for misaligned pixels and clashing color palettes, couldn't quite shut off. It was perfect. All of it. Too perfect. Mark and never seemed to have an off day. Their smiles never faltered. Their lawn was perpetually free of weeds. They were like characters from a 1950s TV show, living in a world of pleasantries and perfectly timed casseroles. No one is that happy all the time. No one's house is that clean when they have a kid. It felt staged. I'd watch them from my home office window, laughing as they gardened together, and a cynical voice in my head would whisper, "What's the catch?" I told myself to shut it down. This was my own city-bred cynicism talking. I had a beautiful family, a wonderful new home, and friendly, generous neighbors. This was the life we wanted, wasn't it? I just had to let myself believe it was real. For a month, I managed to silence that cynical voice in my head. I leaned into the perfection. I went to the BBQs. I waved at passing cars. I drank Mark's excellent homebrewed beer. I let myself believe. And then the first crack appeared. It was small, almost invisible, but it was enough to let the cold back in. I was in the middle of a huge, stressful freelance project for a new client. The details were under a strict non-disclosure agreement, and I'd been discussing my anxieties with Leah in hushed tones in our kitchen the night before. The next afternoon, I was struggling to start our new lawnmower when Mark strolled over, 2 ice-cold bottles of beer in hand. "Figured you could use one of these," he said with his trademark, easygoing smile. We made small talk about the weather, and then he clapped me on the shoulder. "Hey, listen, break a leg with that new design project. Sounds like a big one. You'll kill it." I froze, my hand still on the mower's pull cord. I stared at him. He just smiled back, oblivious. My mind scrambled for a logical explanation. The kitchen window must have been cracked open. He must have overheard us while he was in his yard. Yeah, that had to be it. He was just being friendly, supportive. I forced a laugh. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. But as he walked away, I couldn't shake a profound sense of unease. A week later, and came over with a gift for Mia. It was wrapped in cheerful, bright paper. I just whipped up a little something for her, she said to Leah. Mia tore it open, and inside was a handmade doll. It was beautifully crafted, with yarn hair and button eyes. But as I looked closer, the unease in my gut twisted into a cold knot of dread. The doll wasn't just a doll. It was Mia. It had the same long brown hair, the same wide, curious eyes. It was wearing a miniature version of the same blue sundress we had just bought for her last weekend. And then I saw it. On the doll's left knee, there was a tiny, expertly stitched silver thread, creating a small, puckered line, right where Mia had gotten a little scar from falling off her bike 3 weeks ago. Oh, and this is incredible. You're an artist. Leah gushed, completely enchanted. I couldn't speak. All I could manage was, it's incredibly detailed. Leah shot me a look, the kind that said, don't be weird. I dropped it. What was I supposed to say? Our neighbor is a little too observant. I'd sound insane. The final piece of the social puzzle clicked into place at the annual neighborhood block party. I was watching a group of other neighbors, people from down the street, chatting and laughing. When Mark and Ann approached the group, an invisible switch was flipped. The laughter didn't just stop. It was vacuumed out of the air. Smiles became tight and strained. People suddenly remembered chores they had to do, checking their watches and making quick, polite escapes. It was subtle but undeniable. They weren't just respected. They were feared. The real discovery came last Tuesday. It was almost 2 a.m. I was in my office, trying to upload a massive project file, and the internet was slowing to a crawl. Annoyed, I opened my computer's Wi-Fi settings to see what was going on. I saw our network, a few of our neighbors' locked networks, and then I saw it. An unsecured network with a name that made my heart stop. It had a full 5-bar signal. It was coming from right here. My mind raced. It had to be a baby monitor or a pet camera. A mistake. But I had to know. My hand was trembling as I moved the cursor and clicked connect. It connected instantly. A file-sharing window opened on my screen. It was a clean, simple interface. There was one folder named living_room. My breath hitched. I clicked it. Inside was a list of video files. Hundreds of them. Each one was named with a date. My blood turned to ice. With a sense of detached horror, I double-clicked the file from the previous night. A video player launched. The image was grainy, shot from a high angle, and I saw my own couch, my own living room. I watched as the tiny figures of my wife and I entered the frame, sat down, and turned on the TV. I watched us talk. I watched us kiss goodnight. I watched myself turn off the lights and leave the room. The blood drained from my face. My carefully constructed rationalizations, my attempts to dismiss my own instincts, all of it shattered in an instant. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a camera. It was hidden in my house. We weren't just being watched. We were being cataloged. The perfect neighbors, our new best friends, it was all an elaborate, monstrous lie. And we were the specimens under their microscope. Excellent. We are moving into the heart of the psychological horror. Here is part 3, where Alex's world begins to shrink and the walls start to close in. My first coherent thought was, Leah. I had to show her. This wasn't something I could explain. It had to be seen. I stumbled out of my office and up the stairs, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I shook her awake, my voice a ragged whisper. Leah, wake up. Wake up now. You have to see this. Her sleepy confusion turned to alarm as she saw the look on my face. Alex? What is it? What's wrong? The neighbors, I stammered, pulling her out of bed and toward my office. They're watching us. They've been recording us. I sat her down in my chair, the laptop still open. The video of our living room was still on the screen. She stared at it, her brow furrowed. What am I looking at? This is us. Last night. It's from a camera in our house. I turned to the Wi-Fi menu, my hands shaking. And this is how I found it. Look, I pointed to the screen, to the list of available networks. It was right here. It was called home_cam_feed. But it wasn't there. The list was short. Our network, two of our other neighbors' locked networks, and nothing else. It had vanished as if it had never existed. Leah looked from the blank space on the screen to the video, and then to my wild-eyed, sleep-deprived face. Her expression softened with concern, but it was the wrong kind of concern. It was pity. Alex, honey, she said softly, putting a hand on my arm. It's 2 a.m. You've been working for 18 hours straight. You're exhausted. You probably just misread something, or fell asleep and had a nightmare. No, I insisted, my voice rising. Leah, I saw it. I connected to it. The doll, the project comment, it all makes sense now. She recoiled slightly. The doll was a nice gift. Mark probably overheard you through the window. Alex, listen to yourself. These are our friends. You're starting to sound paranoid. That word, paranoid, hit me like a physical slap. In that moment, watching her look at me not as her husband, but as a problem to be managed, I felt the floor drop out from beneath me. The next day was a waking nightmare. As soon as Leah left with Mia, I tore the house apart. I stood on chairs, prying open smoke detectors and running my fingers along the tops of bookshelves. I checked light fixtures, air vents, picture frames. I was searching for the tiny, black pinprick of a camera lens. I found nothing, and the more I searched, the crazier I felt. My erratic behavior drove Leah further away and straight into their arms. I'd see her from my office window, standing on Anne's perfectly manicured lawn, talking, and would have a hand on Leah's shoulder, her face a mask of deep, compassionate concern. I could write the script myself. He's under so much pressure. Men just don't know how to handle stress. The most important thing is that he feels supported. They were using my wife's love for me as a weapon, turning her into their unwitting ally, and I was powerless to stop it. They were isolating me in my own family. I had to know if I was truly losing my mind. That evening, while Leah was giving me a bath upstairs, I decided to run an experiment. I stood in the dead center of the living room, the spot from the video, and spoke into the empty air. God, I'm starving, I said, my voice feeling foolish and loud in the quiet house. I could really go for some pizza right now. Maybe a large pepperoni. I waited, my heart pounding. 1 minute passed. 2. Nothing. A wave of relief, followed by a wave of shame, washed over me. Leah was right. I am going crazy. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Mark. Hey man, we're ordering a pizza. Thinking pepperoni. You guys in? I stared at the screen, the words blurring. The casual friendliness of the message, the smiling emoji at the end, it was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. It wasn't a question. It was a demonstration, a signal. They were telling me, we hear you. We are always listening. You cannot hide. That was the moment I understood true horror. It isn't a monster in the dark or a ghost in the attic. It's a smiling neighbor who watches you through a hidden lens, who uses the person you love most to convince you that you're the one who's crazy. I was alone, and they knew it. The pizza text broke something in me. The days that followed were lived in a state of quiet, hypervigilant terror. I barely slept. I ate only when Leah put a plate in front of me. I spent hours staring out my office window, watching them. Watching Mark mow his perfect lawn, watching and prune her perfect roses. They smiled and waved if they caught me looking. It was a predator's smile. They were enjoying this. Leah saw my deterioration, and it terrified her. She saw a husband who was gaunt, unshaven, talking to himself and jumping at every shadow. She saw a man losing his mind. So when it came over a few days later, her face a perfect portrait of loving concern, Leah was vulnerable. Leah, honey, and said, her voice dripping with sympathy. Mark and I are so worried about Alex. We feel this tension, and we hate it. We're having a big neighborhood get-together on Saturday night. A real block party. We want you guys to come. Please, let's just clear the air and be friends again. It was the perfect move. To Leah, it was an olive branch, a lifeline. When she told me about it, her eyes were pleading. Alex, please, she begged. We have to go. We have to try to be normal. If we don't, what are we even doing here? Maybe you'll see they're just people, and everything will be okay. I knew it was a trap. But in that moment, looking at my wife's desperate face, I also knew it was my only chance. I couldn't prove anything locked inside my own house. I had to get inside theirs. I had to find something, anything, that would make Leah see the truth. Okay, I said, forcing a smile. You're right. We'll go. On Saturday night, we walked across the lawn that separated our two houses, a 1,000-yard journey into enemy territory. I had my phone in my pocket, its audio recorders silently running. The party was, on the surface, perfect. Soft music drifted from hidden speakers. A beautiful buffet was spread across a long table. But the atmosphere was wrong. It was serene. Too serene. There was no loud laughter, no clashing conversations. Just 30 or so people speaking in hushed, gentle tones, their movements slow and deliberate. I recognized faces from the neighborhood. The couple from the corner house, the family with the twin boys. But they were all different. They had the same placid look in their eyes, the same calm, empty smile. It was the exact same smile Mark and Nan always wore. It was a uniform. I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. This wasn't a party. It was a congregation, a performance for our benefit. The other neighbors weren't afraid of Mark and Anne. They were Mark and Anne. They had all been assimilated. I grabbed Leah's arm. We're leaving, I whispered, my voice tight. Now. For once, she didn't argue. She saw the look on my face, saw the strange, placid smiles all around us, and the fragile denial she'd been clinging to finally shattered. I took Mia's hand, and we turned towards the front door. And suddenly, Mark was there, blocking our path. His smile was still fixed in place, but it didn't reach his eyes. Leaving so soon, Alex? Let us go, Mark, I said, my voice low. His smile finally vanished. It didn't fade. It was just gone, like a light being switched off. His face became a calm, clinical mask. His voice dropped to a conversational, chilling tone. We know you found the network, Alex, he said. That was a bit sloppy on our part. We're still working out the kinks in the onboarding process. My blood ran cold. He said it so casually. Onboarding process. We're not your enemies, he continued, taking a step closer, and appeared at his side, her expression identical to his. We're a family. We believe the modern world makes people sick. The obsession with self, with privacy, with ambition, it's an illness. It creates anxiety, debt, loneliness. We offer a cure. We help people let go of that burden and become part of something whole, something better. He looked right into my eyes. We know about the credit card debt you've been hiding from Leah. We know you're terrified your freelance business is about to fail. We know you fight about money. We know everything, Alex, and we can make it all go away. The stress, the worry, the secrets. He gestured back towards the living room, where all the smiling, empty faces had turned to watch us, a silent chorus. You just have to stop fighting, Mark said, his voice soft as silk. You just have to accept that you're home now. You, Leah and Mia. You're part of the family. Behind us, I heard the heavy, solid click of the front door's deadbolt sliding into place. We weren't guests anymore. We were the newest acquisitions. My mind raced, cycling through 1,000 dead ends. The front door was locked. The windows were filled with the serene, smiling faces of the family. They weren't blocking us with force, but with a suffocating, placid certainty. We were fish in their bowl. Then my eyes darted past Mark's shoulder, through the glass of the sliding patio door. I saw the large, stainless steel gas grill on their pristine deck. It was a monolith of suburban order, and I knew it was our only way out. I had to act. I let my shoulders slump, trying to look defeated. I need some air, I stammered, looking at Mark. Please, just for a second. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. A gesture of magnanimity from a king to a peasant. It was the last mistake he would make with me. I slid the door open and stepped out into the cool night air. Leah started to say my name, her voice full of fear. I didn't look back. I walked directly to the grill, grabbed the side of the heavy steel lid, and with a guttural roar I didn't know I possessed, I heaved it over. The crash of metal on stone was deafening. The propane tank hissed violently. Hot coals and burning food scattered across the expensive patio tiles, and a thick, acrid smoke began to billow upwards. Chaos erupted. The serene masks of the family finally cracked, replaced with shock and confusion. Their perfect order was broken. That was my chance. Leah now. I screamed. I sprinted from the patio, grabbing Mia from Leah's paralyzed grasp. Leah snapped out of her trance and grabbed my arm. We ran. We ran across their perfect lawn, a frantic, terrified unit not daring to look back. We fumbled with the keys at our own front door, burst inside, and were out the garage door in seconds. The car engine roared to life. As I peeled out of our driveway, tires squealing on the quiet suburban street, I risked one last glance in the rearview mirror. The sight will haunt me for the rest of my life. The chaos was already over. Mark and a dozen other members of the family were standing on their front lawn. They weren't shouting. They weren't chasing us. They were just watching us go. And they were all smiling that same, calm, terrifying smile. They looked like farmers watching a storm pass, confident that the real damage to the crops had already been done. We didn't stop driving until we saw the blue lights of the police station. I stumbled inside, half carrying Mia, and unloaded our insane story onto a tired-looking officer at the front desk. I sounded like a madman, I know I did. I talked about the cameras, the cult, the party, the threats. Leah just sat beside me, pale and silent, clutching Mia's hand. They took my statement. They said they'd look into it. The call came the next morning. It was the officer. Sir, he said, his voice flat and bureaucratic. We sent the squad car to the address you indicated. The house is empty. All the furniture is gone. There's a for sale sign in the yard. What? I said, my voice trembling. What about the other families? The people at the party? We spoke to several of the neighbors, sir, the officer continued, a weary sigh in his voice. They all said the couple living there, the Martins, were a lovely, quiet couple who moved out last week. No one mentioned any party. Sir, are you and your wife having any domestic issues? Are you under a lot of stress at work? I looked over at Leah, who was listening on speakerphone. I saw the last bit of belief in her eyes die out, replaced by a deep, heartbreaking pity. The police didn't find a cult. They found a crazy man. It's been a year since that night. We sold the house. We moved to a small, anonymous apartment in a different city. Leah stayed with me. She stayed for Mia. But the woman I married is gone. She looks at me now not with love, but with a cautious, clinical sympathy. The look you give someone who is fragile, someone who might break. The intimacy we shared has been replaced by the quiet understanding that she thinks her husband is mentally ill. I don't work as a designer anymore. I have a new full-time job. I watch. Our apartment is a fortress. I spent thousands on a security system. There are 4 cameras covering the hallway outside our door, 2 on the street below, 1 in the parking garage. I spend my days watching the monitors, my back to the window. I document every new tenant, every delivery person, every unfamiliar car. A young couple moved into the apartment across the hall last week. They seemed nice. They smiled and waved at me when I passed them. I didn't wave back. I just went inside, pulled up the feed from the hallway camera, and zoomed in on their smiling faces, analyzing them for any hint of that serene, empty placidity. Mark was right about one thing. They cured me. They cured me of trust, of peace, of ever feeling safe again. They didn't need to lock me in their house. They turned my own mind into a prison, and I am the warden, the guard, and the solitary inmate. And I will watch these walls for the rest of my life.